The drill sergeant laughed when the quiet recruit stepped forward for shooting practice. "Think you can hit anything with those shaky hands?" he mocked. But when her sleeve rolled up during rifle positioning, revealing a coiled black snake tattoo with the numbers BV7, the laughter died instantly. From which city in the world are you watching this video today? If this story resonates with you, consider subscribing for more tales of unrecognized heroes. Fort Richardson Training Base buzzed with the usual chaos of a new recruit cycle. Drill Sergeant Marcus Webb stood at the center of the weapons training ground, his voice cutting through the morning air like a blade. 23 new recruits stood in formation, each one trying to look more confident than they felt. Among them stood Private Cassandra Vale, a woman whose presence seemed to bend light around her. Not because she was particularly striking, quite the opposite. She had perfected the art of existing in the spaces between attention, moving through the world with a calculated quietness that made others' eyes slide past her without pause. Webb had noticed her immediately, though not for the reasons she might have preferred. In 30 years of military service, he had developed an instinct for reading people. Most recruits fell into predictable categories: the overconfident who needed humbling, the terrified who needed building up, the naturally gifted who needed channeling. Cassandra Vale didn't fit any of these molds. She completed every task with mechanical precision. Physical training, weapons maintenance, tactical exercises, she performed each duty adequately, never excelling, never failing. It was the kind of performance that should have made her invisible, but something about her stillness made Webb's veteran instincts twitch. "Vale!" Webb barked, his voice carrying across the training ground. "You're up for marksmanship evaluation." The other recruits turned to watch, some snickering behind their hands. Cassandra had become something of a running joke among the group, not because she was incompetent, but because her careful mediocrity felt almost insulting to those who were genuinely struggling. She never offered help, never showed off, never seemed to care about anything beyond completing the minimum requirements. Private Johnson, a cocky kid from Texas who never missed an opportunity to demonstrate his supposed superiority, leaned toward his buddy Martinez. $20 says she can't hit the broadside of a barn." Martinez chuckled, but something in his expression suggested he wasn't entirely convinced. There was something about the way Cassandra moved, the way she held herself, that didn't quite match the performance she gave in training. Cassandra approached the firing line with the same measured steps she used for everything else. Her face remained neutral, showing neither nervousness nor confidence. She picked up the standard-issue M4 carbine, running her hands along its length with what appeared to be unfamiliarity. But to a trained eye, her movements betrayed a different story. Her fingers found the safety, the magazine release, the charging handle with the unconscious precision of someone who had handled similar weapons thousands of times. Webb noticed. His eyes narrowed as he watched her adjust her stance. "First time with a real rifle, Vale?" he asked, his tone suggesting he already knew the answer was more complicated than it appeared. "Yes, Drill Sergeant," she replied, her voice barely above a whisper. The lie came easily, naturally, as if she had been practicing it for years. The shooting range fell quiet as Cassandra positioned herself. The target stood 300 meters downrange, a challenging distance for a new recruit, but standard for military evaluation. Webb had chosen this distance deliberately, partly to test the recruit's abilities, partly to humble those who thought too highly of themselves. As Cassandra raised the rifle to her shoulder, her sleeve rode up slightly, revealing just a hint of black ink beneath the fabric. "Look at her shaking," Johnson whispered to Martinez, loud enough for others to hear. "Probably never held anything heavier than a pencil before joining up." More chuckles rippled through the group. Even Webb allowed himself a small smile. It was good for recruits to see failure early in training. It motivated them to work harder, to take the process seriously. But as Cassandra adjusted her grip, something changed. The tremor in her hands, which had seemed so obvious moments before, disappeared entirely. Her breathing slowed, became measured and controlled. Her posture shifted subtly, taking on the stance of someone who understood the relationship between body, weapon, and target on an instinctive level. The transformation was so gradual that most observers missed it entirely. Webb didn't miss it. His smile faded as he watched Cassandra's body settle into perfect shooting position. Her left elbow found the exact angle for optimal stability. Her cheek touched the stock with the practiced ease of someone who had made this motion countless times before. Her breathing pattern shifted to the 4-count rhythm used by professional marksmen. Breathe in, breathe out, breathe in halfway, hold fire. The first shot cracked across the range. The spotter called out immediately, "Center mass, 10 ring." A murmur went through the recruits. "Lucky shot," someone muttered. Beginners sometimes got lucky on their first attempt. Webb said nothing, but his attention was now completely focused on the woman behind the rifle. Cassandra cycled the bolt with smooth efficiency, her movements becoming more fluid with each repetition. The second shot followed quickly. "10 ring, same hole," the spotter announced, his voice carrying a note of surprise. The murmuring stopped. The third shot. The fourth. Each one placed with mechanical precision in the exact center of the target. By the fifth shot, the training ground had fallen completely silent. Even Johnson had stopped smirking. The spotter's voice carried clearly across the range. "Ma'am, you're shooting a single ragged hole at 300 meters. I need to confirm this scope is properly calibrated." Webb stepped forward, his veteran instincts now screaming that nothing about this situation was what it appeared to be. "Vale," he said quietly, "where exactly did you learn to shoot?" Cassandra didn't look up from the rifle. She was preparing for her 6th and final shot, her movements automatic, practiced. "YouTube tutorials, drill sergeant," she replied, the lie so smooth it almost sounded believable. Almost. The 6th shot joined the others in the center of the target. 6 rounds, 1 hole, 300 meters. The kind of shooting that typically required years of training and natural talent. Webb had seen Olympic shooters perform worse, under less pressure. As Cassandra lowered the rifle, her sleeve rode up further, revealing more of the tattoo beneath. What Webb saw made his blood run cold. It wasn't the amateur ink he might have expected from a young recruit trying to look tough. This was professional work, military-grade artistry that told a story he recognized from classified briefings and whispered conversations in secure facilities. A coiled black viper, rendered in precise detail, its fangs bared, its eyes seeming to stare directly at the observer. Wrapped around the snake's body were the letters and numbers BV7, markings that shouldn't exist on anyone still breathing. Webb's hands began to tremble. In his 30 years of service, he had heard whispers about Black Viper units, elite operators who worked in the spaces between official military operations. Ghost soldiers who took on missions too sensitive for regular special forces, too dangerous for conventional units. The kind of operators who officially didn't exist, whose deaths were never announced, whose successes were never celebrated. "Private Vale," Webb said, his voice barely controlled. "I need to see your complete service record, immediately." Cassandra finally looked up from the rifle, meeting his eyes for the first time since arriving at the base. What he saw there made him take an involuntary step backward. Her eyes held the particular emptiness that came from seeing too much, from carrying the weight of decisions that others would never understand. "Drill sergeant," she said quietly. "My service record shows 3 months of basic training at Fort Leonard Wood, followed by assignment to Fort Richardson. Standard infantry track, no special qualifications, no advanced training." She paused, her gaze never wavering from his. "That's all the system will show you." The other recruits were beginning to realize that something significant was happening, though they couldn't quite understand what. The easy camaraderie of the morning had been replaced by a tension that seemed to press down on everyone present. Martinez stepped closer, trying to get a better look at the tattoo that had caused such a dramatic change in their drill sergeant's demeanor. "Holy shit," Martinez whispered, loud enough for others to hear. "Is that some kind of special forces thing?" His question hung in the air like smoke from the discharged rifles. Other recruits craned their necks, trying to catch a glimpse of whatever had captured Webb's attention so completely. Cassandra made no move to cover the tattoo. If anything, she seemed resigned to its discovery, as if she had been expecting this moment since the day she arrived at Fort Richardson. She set the rifle down carefully, her movements still precise and controlled, and faced the growing circle of curious faces. "Drill Sergeant Webb," she said, her voice carrying an authority that seemed completely at odds with her recruit status. "I think we need to have a private conversation." It wasn't a request. Despite her lower rank, despite the military hierarchy that should have made such a statement impossible, it came across as a polite order from someone accustomed to being obeyed. Webb nodded slowly, still trying to process what he was seeing. Black Viper units were supposed to be extinct. The program had been terminated years ago following a catastrophic mission failure that resulted in the deaths of an entire team. The official reports had been classified beyond his clearance level, but rumors had circulated through the military intelligence community. An operation in a hostile region, a betrayal by local assets, a team of elite operators wiped out to the last person. "Johnson, Martinez, the rest of you," Webb announced, his voice regaining some of its usual authority. "Continue with individual marksmanship training. Vale, with me." As they walked towards the command building, Webb's mind raced through the implications of what he had just witnessed. If Cassandra Vale was indeed a Black Viper survivor, her presence at Fort Richardson represented either an extraordinary security breach or part of a classified operation so sensitive that even base commanders might not be aware of it. The walk to Webb's office seemed to take forever. Other base personnel they passed showed no particular interest in the drill sergeant escorting a recruit, but Webb found himself hyper-aware of every face, every uniform, every potential observer. If Vale was who her tattoo suggested she might be, then their conversation could have implications far beyond a simple training evaluation. Once inside his office, Webb closed the door and activated the white noise generator, a security measure he typically reserved for conversations involving classified information. Vale took a seat without being invited, her posture relaxed but alert, like a cat preparing to spring if necessary. "Black Viper 7, Webb said, his voice barely above a whisper. "I thought that designation died with Operation Nightfall." Cassandra's expression didn't change, but something flickered behind her eyes. Pain, perhaps, or the kind of weary recognition that came from hearing a name she had hoped never to hear again. "Officially it did," she replied, along with everyone who carried it. She was quiet for a long moment, her gaze fixed on something beyond the office walls. "The mission parameters were compromised before we ever set foot in country. Intelligence failures, communication breakdowns, hostile forces that seemed to know our every move before we made it." Webb leaned forward in his chair, his training as an intelligence officer taking over from his role as a drill sergeant. The after-action report said there were no survivors. Complete unit loss, bodies never recovered. Cassandra's smile held no warmth, only the bitter knowledge that came from surviving when others hadn't. Bodies never recovered because there were no bodies to recover, at least not where anyone was looking. She rolled up her sleeve completely, revealing the full extent of the tattoo. In addition to the coiled Viper and the BV7 designation, there were smaller symbols worked into the design. Names, dates, coordinates, a memorial written in ink and scar tissue. The mission was supposed to be a surgical strike against a high-value target in a region that officially didn't exist on any military maps. Intelligence suggested minimal security, local cooperation, quick insertion and extraction. What we found instead was a carefully orchestrated trap. Her voice remained steady, professional, but Webb could hear the weight of memory behind each word. 7 operators went in. Only 1 came out. The extraction point was compromised, our communications were being jammed, and enemy forces seemed to anticipate our every move. My team members died covering my withdrawal, buying me the time I needed to complete the mission and get out alive. She paused, her fingers tracing the outline of the tattoo unconsciously. The official story was easier than the truth. 7 dead operators with no recoverable intelligence is a tragedy. 6 dead operators and 1 survivor who completed an impossible mission despite catastrophic intelligence failures is a lawsuit waiting to happen. So they declared us all KIA, classified the operation beyond anyone's clearance level, and let the world forget we ever existed. Webb struggled to process what he was hearing. Military cover-ups were not uncommon, But the scale of what Cassandra was describing suggested corruption at levels that made him uncomfortable to contemplate. So what are you doing here? Why enlist as a regular recruit when you have skills that would make you valuable to any number of special operations units? Cassandra's laugh was bitter. Because those units don't exist for people like me. Officially, I died in a classified operation 3 years ago. My military records were sealed. My identity was scrubbed from all databases. My family was told I died in a training accident. She met his eyes directly. I have no past, no service record, no qualifications that I can claim without revealing operations that are still classified above your pay grade. The implications of her situation began to dawn on Webb. An elite operator with no official existence, forced to start over from the bottom of the military hierarchy. The perfect skills rendered useless by the very system that had created them. So you're hiding in plain sight. Mediocre recruit with no special qualifications. No one looks too closely. It was working until today, Cassandra replied. I've been careful to never excel, never draw attention. Just another body filling out the ranks, someone who would serve her time quietly and disappear back into civilian life without anyone remembering her name. She looked toward the office window, where the sounds of continued training drifted in from the range. But you couldn't help yourself with the shooting, Webb observed. 6 shots, 1 hole, at 300 meters. That's not something you can fake or hold back on. Cassandra nodded, a rueful expression crossing her face. Muscle memory is difficult to suppress. When I picked up that rifle, everything just clicked back into place. The stance, the breathing, the sight picture, it all came back automatically. She was quiet for a moment. I suppose part of me was tired of pretending to be incompetent. It's harder than you might think to deliberately perform below your abilities day after day. Webb's training told him he should report this conversation immediately. A presumed KIA operator showing up under false identity was the kind of security breach that ended careers and triggered investigations. But his instincts as a soldier told him something different. This wasn't a security threat. This was a warrior who had been abandoned by the system she had served faithfully. What do you want from me? He asked finally. What are you hoping to accomplish here? Cassandra was quiet for a long time, considering her answer carefully. I want to serve, she said simply. Not as a ghost, not as someone who officially doesn't exist, but as a regular soldier doing regular soldier things. I want to train recruits, maintain equipment, stand duty rotations, all the mundane, ordinary tasks that make the military function. She paused. I want to remember what it feels like to be part of something larger than myself without constantly looking over my shoulder for enemies who might not even exist anymore. The sincerity in her voice was unmistakable. This wasn't someone seeking glory or recognition. This was someone trying to find a way back to a normal life after experiences that had left her stranded between her classified past and an uncertain future. Webb found himself facing a decision that would define both their careers. The shooting exhibition today is going to raise questions, he said carefully. Other instructors will want explanations. The base commander might order an investigation into your background. Cassandra nodded, having clearly considered this possibility. I know. I'm prepared for that outcome. If necessary, I'll disappear again. Find another base, another identity, another chance to serve quietly. Her resignation was complete, the acceptance of someone who had learned not to expect happy endings. Webb made his decision. What if there was another option? What if instead of hiding your abilities, we found a way to use them legitimately? Cassandra's eyes sharpened with interest, but her expression remained cautious. I'm listening, she said. Webb leaned back in his chair, his mind already working through the possibilities and complications of what he was considering. Fort Richardson runs an advanced marksmanship program for select personnel. Officially, it's designed to identify and train potential sniper candidates for various special operations units. Unofficially, it's also used to provide specialized training for personnel whose backgrounds might be complicated. He watched her reaction carefully. The program commander is Colonel Sarah Mitchell, someone who understands that the military sometimes needs to find creative solutions for unusual problems. If I were to recommend you for the program based on your demonstrated shooting ability, no one would question your background too closely. Your skills would be seen as natural talent rather than advanced training. Cassandra considered this carefully. And in exchange, she asked, recognizing that such arrangements typically came with conditions. You help train the next generation of marksmen. You share your knowledge and experience without revealing the classified details of where you acquired it. You become the instructor you're capable of being instead of hiding behind mediocrity. Webb paused. And you help me understand what really happened to Black Viper 7 in case there are still threats out there that we need to be prepared for. The offer hung between them like a bridge spanning the gap between Cassandra's classified past and her potential future. It wasn't perfect. She would still be living with secrets, still unable to fully acknowledge her service and sacrifice. But it represented something she hadn't dared to hope for. A chance to serve openly, to use her skills for something positive, to be part of the military community instead of hiding at its edges. There are risks, she said finally. People who were involved in the Black Viper program might not want survivors surfacing, even under different identities. There could be political implications, career consequences for anyone who helps me. Her concern for Webb's position was genuine, born from experience with how quickly the military could turn on those who complicated official narratives. Webb had considered these risks, weighing them against his instincts about both Cassandra's character and the military's need for personnel with her unique qualifications. "I've been in this uniform for 30 years, he said. "I've seen good soldiers destroyed by bad politics, and I've seen bad politics disguised as military necessity. Whatever happened with Black Viper 7, you survived it and you're here now, wanting to serve honorably. That's enough for me." The decision made, they spent the next hour working out the practical details of Cassandra's transition from anonymous recruit to specialized instructor. It would require careful documentation, creative explanations for her sudden emergence as a gifted marksman, and ongoing vigilance to ensure that her true background remained secure. But both of them recognized that this represented the best possible outcome under impossible circumstances. As their conversation concluded, Webb found himself reflecting on the strange turns that military careers could take. This morning, he had been a drill sergeant dealing with routine recruit training. By afternoon, he had become part of a carefully orchestrated fiction designed to give a classified warrior a second chance at serving her country. The irony wasn't lost on him that in order to allow Cassandra to serve honestly, they first had to construct an elaborate lie. "One more thing," Cassandra said as she prepared to leave the office. "The other recruits, Johnson, Martinez, the rest, they're going to have questions about what they saw today. How do we handle that?" It was a practical concern that highlighted the ongoing challenges of maintaining her cover while allowing her to function openly. Webb smiled grimly. "We tell them the truth, just not all of it. You're a natural marksman with exceptional potential who was recommended for advanced training. Everything else is classified and none of their business." As Cassandra left the office, Webb watched her walk back towards the training areas. They would look at her differently now. The quiet woman who had blended into the background would be replaced by someone worthy of respect and perhaps fear. That evening, Webb completed his daily reports, writing 2 versions. The official report noted that Private Vale had demonstrated exceptional marksmanship and was recommended for advanced training. The unofficial report, locked in his safe, contained the full truth. In the barracks, Cassandra lay listening to whispered conversations about her background. She had become interesting, which was dangerous. But for the first time in 3 years, she allowed herself to hope. The tattoo would always remind her of lost teammates, but perhaps it could become a symbol of survival. Tomorrow might bring opportunities instead of hiding. The quiet resurrection of a warrior presumed dead, and a new chapter in a story that officially never existed.